Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fan Behavior and F1 Podcast. I'm Zoe. I'm back with Hannah.
Hey.
This is like our fourth podcast in a week.
Yeah.
We are that Kim Kardashian sound.
Yeah.
We are getting our asses up and we are working.
We are.
And I mean, I'm proud of us for doing that.
Me too. It's funny. I've been like referencing in different things. Like I think you had posted, I did a really sweet interview yesterday with a friend of mine does like homeschool and tutoring. And she's doing a paper on why F1's better than NASCAR. And I was one of her primary sources, which felt really wild and cool. And it was really sweet.
Also controversial.
Yeah. So shout out to Michaela. And then, but when she was asking like what websites I trust, I obviously was like, well, I really am more of a source girly than a website girly. And so I was talking about Nate, but I literally couldn't remember when that was actually recorded and when it came out this week because we did so many. So
yeah, it's a lot has happened in the last week in pop culture, in Formula One, that we just felt
Justin Bieber's back, which I don't know how. That's for another
we just
time,
really felt like we needed to speak our truth, which is all we ever really wanted to do, is to be able to like record ourselves talking about the things that we care about and for people to want to listen to them.
Yeah, because we're hilarious.
Well, so we think.
Well, right.
So anyway, thank you to the people that have watched or listened to our Ferrari Lewis bonus episode.
It was our best F1 YouTube video so far.
Exactly.
Which was pretty fun.
And so that's been fun. If you're new here, if you found us through that video or podcast episode, welcome to the show. Hope you
I
stick
did think
around.
it was funny. I saw a lot of comments on that video being like, I'm here from your Taylor Swift videos, but this was very helpful for me to understand because it really permeated so heavily into pop culture world, and people were just like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Even I think there's the Instagram account Shit You Should Care About.
Yes.
They posted the like Zayn tweet.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is crossing borders.
One of my dad's friends like randomly called him last week and was like, so I heard there's some like F1 news, like some big, guy, like people who don't even really know about Formula One are just like, oh yeah, I heard there's like some big shakeup in the Formula One space.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. So funny.
That there is. So anyway,
it felt fun being on the inside of it.
So fun. So we're just going to go through kind of more, this was just going to be an F1 news episode anyway, and then shit hit the fan last week. So we're going to, now that I don't even want to say that the dust has settled because it has not settled, but now we have a little bit more information.
Through the fog though.
Exactly. It's been a few days. We'll get back into more of the Lewis news, Andretti, other kind of stuff that's happened in the last few days, and then take some of your guys' questions as well. So, okay, let's just continue where we left off, which was Lewis Hamilton's going to Ferrari.
Yeah.
Any change of opinion since last talked?
I guess in a lot of ways there is something that makes a lot like more sense, I think, than when it first happened and I was like, what the hell's going on? I think I can understand the rationale. We've
gotten some more context, a little bit more context, I think, from Lewis's perspective.
Totally. And he
broke his Instagram silence.
Yeah, he did, which I think is funny because it's like you already put out a statement. I don't know. The way that we now view social media, it's like even though he put out a formalized statement, it wasn't real until it was on his own Instagram, which I just think is funny. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm just really curious to see how what the dynamic is going to be during the season. Like between Lewis and Carlos, between Lewis and the whole Merc team. I don't know. I think it's just one of those, like, it opens such a can of worms that really all season will be silly season to a degree, because I just feel like there's going to be questions and I think what's ironic is when we were talking with Nate about the Lando thing and why he re-signed so early, and it's a lot because they don't like talking about it in interviews and stuff. We've basically there's been a domino effect that will be what they're interviewed about.
I was going to say, I feel like it's going to be, because Lewis makes this one move, then it creates another move for somebody else, and then that opens a move for somebody else and move for somebody else, and then it just like the dominoes fall into, we joke about, everyone always talks about Alex Albon's appendix and how that led to then a chain of events, and it's true. It's one thing happens and then the next thing happens and the next thing happens, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're confused as to why a driver's at one team and driver's at a different team, and it just seems very, I don't know. It's just it's like a wild ride because you just don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
So we now know that he signed a $100 million a year contract.
That's insane.
Which is crazy. I mean, it makes sense. He is Lewis Hamilton. He's one of the best drivers on the grid. So you pay him because of how talented he is on the track. But then you're also paying him because he is
his likeness.
Lewis Hamilton, and he's this massive celebrity. It's almost like you're paying you are paying like a brand ambassador to promote your product.
And they're two different salaries.
Right.
Exactly. There's like the racer salary and then the marketing.
Exactly. So, and people have joked on the internet that they just essentially were just like, write a number down.
Yeah.
And he was like, 100
yeah, because I mean there's always room for negotiation, but and then they're just like, sure, we've got that.
Right. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, Lewis did say years ago, cash is king. So he's a man of his word.
Yeah.
He understands the value of a dollar. And we also now know Toto has come out and done some interviews talking about how this all went down and how he found out. And he revealed that Lewis came by his home in Oxford the day before. They sat down. They had a conversation about it for like an hour, talked through it. Lewis revealed the news. And Toto has said some revealing things, or maybe he didn't necessarily think it was so revealing, but it's made people think. Yeah. Because he's basically, he said that they knew that their partnership was going to come to an end at the end of 2025, regardless of what was going to happen. That I don't think Mercedes was thinking about extending him any further than that.
Wow.
So that's one piece of the pie, which is maybe Lewis thought to himself, either I'm going to have to retire or I'm going to have to find another place anyway.
Yeah.
So I might as well do it now.
Sure. That's really interesting.
It is interesting. And I just think Lewis or Mercedes essentially felt like, at the end of 25, Lewis will be 41, and they probably just felt like we're going to be ready to move on to the next person.
Yeah.
Because I believe Lewis wanted a 3-year extension with Merck, and then also wanted like an ambassador role within Mercedes. And they said, we'll give you, the 1+1 and no ambassadorship, which is, again, it's like, what?
Why? Yeah.
Ferrari offered a 3-year deal and an ambassador role and $100 million. And then they also, I read as well that they agreed to help fund, I don't know if it's fund directly or basically promote his charity endeavors and Mission 44 and the stuff that he obviously cares a lot about. So that was probably a big reason as to why he wanted to go as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting now in that context. I don't know that people were really upset with Lewis for wanting to drive for Ferrari. Like, it's an understandable move, but I think there are probably some people who felt like Lewis turned his back on them. And maybe that's not so much the case.
Yeah, it seems a little bit more amicable than that.
Yeah, and that it was just... And I think even Toto said, this might be a great chance for us to do something bold and make a big change that we didn't, see coming, or people didn't see coming. So maybe that bold choice is Fernando. Maybe that bold choice is, I don't know who. But I was trying to think about who I feel like George would be best with. And I don't know. I mean, him and Fernando they seem, obviously, like they seem like they have a good time together at parties and whatever, but like I don't really see them as teammates. I don't know if you do.
Not necessarily, but I also think it's interesting, like, if Lewis's age had played any part in why they were ending their partnership after 2025. And I think you even said this, like, Fernando probably doesn't necessarily make sense in that capacity for them, because if they're wanting to kind of build a new era of Mercedes, that would involve someone that is closer to George's age, I would think. So I don't know if it's this F2 driver potentially that would be coming in. I don't know if they, do pull Alex, and I'm sure we'll get to this, but like, I think the Red Bull stuff is just chatter.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But very interesting. As we mentioned, Lewis broke his social media silence. He did reveal in his Instagram caption that this was a dream of his to drive for Ferrari, which I mean, obviously, I think we all assumed it would be. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting thing to watch unfold over the course of the season.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
And now it feels a little, for all the people who were like, how could Lewis do this? I think it also paints a picture that maybe for both sides, it really was more business than anything, of like, he saw his opening and it felt like the right time to finalize something and do it quickly so that he knows for sure at the end of the season, you know, what his future looks like.
Yep, exactly. All right, moving on to the other, what we thought was the big piece of news this week, but then that ended up being just a drop in the bucket.
Truly.
Andretti was denied their bid to join the F1 grid in 2025 and 2026. A lot of things to discuss. I guess if you're relatively new to F1 or you're sort of confused as to what has gone down with Andretti over the last handful of months, years, you know, they've been trying to get into Formula One for a while. I feel like last year, and also maybe the year before, but last year especially, they were really pushing hard to get into Formula One, and they had created this partnership with Cadillac, and they were out and about and like boots on the ground trying to get people on board for their venture into Formula One. They got approved by the FIA to join. And again, for those who don't know, you have to get, you get the FIA approval to join, but from a commercial rights holder perspective, you then have to get F1, the F1 teams acceptance into the sport. Essentially, that's like the money side of the sport. Are they going to divide the money to allow an 11th team in? And the reality is that these teams did not want to give up their piece of the pie. And so they said no. How do you feel about it?
I think it's a little obnoxious.
Yeah.
I think in a way I see both sides, but you know, I think it's a missed opportunity. I think Ash Vandelay had said something along the lines, which I kind of agree with. It's like, okay, so you've brought 3 races now to the United States and potentially adding a 4th if this Chicago thing has any weight to it. So you want American money, but you don't want an American team for the American fans to have interest in.
Oh, we have an American team, Hannah.
No, we don't.
I know we don't.
We have a team that's owned by an American, and that's
Mr. Gene.
Yeah, feels different to me.
Totally.
And I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, it's just a hard one because I also feel like they are now in a position where they get to pick and choose if there's a new team coming in or there's not. Right. Whereas like before they were desperate for more teams to come in because there was no money. And now I just am like, okay, so because your American fan base has grown, and not that it didn't grow in other countries, but the American fan base has grown.
Steepest boom.
Yeah. And now you want all of our money, but you can't put it back like in our I don't know, the whole thing just feels lame and weird. And I don't know, I've just always been of the mind that like and we talk about it from like the female creator perspective, like there's enough room for everybody, and in a way there isn't. Like, if to me it's like there's either room for more than 10 teams or F1 can only be 10 teams. Yeah, you know what I mean? And like we just I feel like it's not fair is such a dumb word, but like to me it feels unfair. And then I think there's commentary on like we don't think they'd be competitive enough. Yeah, okay, isn't that better for you? Like, in a way, like what's wrong with them coming in and not being competitive? That's on them. Well, I guess the fear is like a Haas or teams in the past, because there have been seasons fairly recently where there's been more than 10 teams, and those teams come in, they are terrible, they're way at the back, they financially just crumble, and it's like a complete, they have to pull out immediately. Like, you want a team to come in that is like financially healthy, and it's going to like not just completely disintegrate after a couple of seasons. Sure, and I get that, but I also like isn't that Andretti's call to make? Well, and also Andretti of all like of any team of any like sort of motorsport business corporation to come into Formula One, they're like the best suited to do so because they have other racing series. Yeah, they're a well-known entity with and we'll get
get in, or I'll share some more information, because some people have asked, like, who is Andretti? Like, why is this important? Why, like, what
the significance?
Yeah, the significance of this team. I was also going to say too, like, so F1 in their sort of statements denying their entry, they basically said, that they didn't believe that, or they questioned their ability to build a competitive car in 1 or 2 years. And then they also said that they believe that at this point in time, F1 would give more value to Andretti than Andretti would give to Formula One. Now, I think people read that and they have obviously two different opinions of, oh my God, F1, they're so entitled. They think that they're better than everybody and they don't understand the power of Andretti. And then you could say there's people that think, well, yeah, that's true. Formula One has such power right now. It would increase. Sure. Now, I think it's a twofold thing, because I think the short-sighted answer is yes, they do, or F1 does add value to Andretti, but I think that's not thinking long term.
Totally.
And as you mentioned, it's just very hypocritical, might not be the right word, but exactly what we've been saying for so long. And even last year, they're coming into the States, they're creating all these races, they want the American dollars, they recognize the value of the American fan, they're taking, they want American sponsorships, all these things, but then they don't see the value of, oh, well, let's now integrate a real American team, which, yes, maybe will create less money right now in the short term for these teams, but what could this do for us long term? And as Nate talked about when we talked about this last week, there might be a time when F1 is struggling, and they do want Andretti to come in, and Andretti's going to say, why would I now come in when things are not going so hot? Mm-hmm. It's also interesting too, because from an American perspective, like American sports perspective and franchises and like how leagues will, expand and add more teams. It's different, obviously, because you're expanding with American sports to a new city, which is going to add value. You're going to generate revenue because you're in a new location, rather than Formula One, which isn't so based there. You don't, it's not like, oh, I'm from this town, so therefore, I mean, I guess Ferrari, obviously there's that, but it's just a different situation. So I get that it's more complicated than that, but it also feels like, and I don't know how this would even happen, but it feels like there needs to be a way it feels weird that the team, that the people that are directly affected by who have like vested interest in denying a team, that they get the final say.
Agreed.
It just, I mean, I get it too, because it's like, well, it does directly affect them, but it just feels a little bit, it's like almost like it's almost, I mean, this might be a weird analogy, but like, when you can't like your parent couldn't be your doctor.
Yeah, right.
Or something,
conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. It's like you're too personally connected to the situation to really see it from like an overarching, bigger picture point of view.
Yeah, I mean, to me,
I know it's a weird analogy,
but it almost feels like there should be some sort of report from F1 and the teams that gives their recommendation, and then it's reviewed by the other. Is it because it's F1 management, or is F1 management the teams?
That's the teams.
So then it's kind of like it's taken to another authority.
It's like the Supreme Court.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in a lot of ways. I mean, I actually keep laughing in my head because I don't really focus on how our government system works. But it is. It's like, what is it? The House first or second? When a bill is like up.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's not going through the Supreme Court, but yes, it has to pass through Congress, and then it has to go past the Senate, and then it gets up to the president.
Yeah, right. But at some point, okay, well, so it's made it through, and it's either going to get slammed shut, and the president's going to veto that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just kind of this weird, it feels like an imbalance. Yeah. It feels like an imbalanced system.
Yeah. And I understand, like, there's the FIA approval, then it gets to it's, and I'm not going to sit here. We're not going to sit here and be like, we have all the answers. We know how to fix this.
Yeah.
We're gonna. We don't fully understand. Like, I'm sure many people who pretend to understand, they actually really don't understand. I don't know what the solution is, but it just seems like if Andretti's never going to get in, or they're not going to get approved, then will anybody ever get approved? And will we ever be able to expand? And will we ever be able to, I mean, do we really just want 10 teams? I don't know. I don't know like either. We could be in a position where we could get, I'm not saying we need 15 teams.
Sure.
I don't even think that's probably not a good idea. But I think 11, maybe 12 teams is a good place to be. It also gives you more, it gives you a little bit more, leeway is the wrong word, but you can add some more interesting people into the mix, especially with your driver lineup. You take more risks on like we always talk about how the F2 champion, it's like how difficult they have to get into Formula One. Like there should be a really more solid, easy path for those people to get into the sport, or someone who maybe had a rocky season, but they probably still deserve to be in the sports. Like there's more just like places for them to I don't know, fall, I guess. There was a very funny tweet, I'm going to find it, from IndyCar driver Scotty McLaughlin.
He's so funny.
Let me see if I can find it. After the news came out, hopefully I didn't delete it, because that would be... Okay. So he said, it's all right. Take your 10 teams. We will have 27 cars within a second in a few weeks, having zero idea Sunday who's going to win the race. All the very best. LFG IndyCar. So, and it is true. I mean, it's like IndyCar is way more, I shouldn't say it's more interesting. It's just like, it's a different series.
Unknown.
It's more unknown. There's more people involved. There's more, it is true. You don't know who's going to win a race. I mean, you know who like the top drivers are, the top teams are, but there's a lot more variables involved. And it's just, I think it's short-sighted. That's my like sort of baseline feeling about it, is a short-sighted decision. Also, did you see that F1 claimed that they made an offer to them to come to do like an in-person meeting in December?
No, that
wasn't accepted by them. And then like in their response to being denied, they said that email went to their junk folder. Andretti was like, we would have loved to have met you in person and like have this conversation in person, but we never received the invitation because it went in our junk folder. In like whoever sent the email, it didn't get into our mail
box. And no one followed up?
I guess not.
That's weird.
I know. I'm like, that's
what a normal corporate day thing to happen.
But like the most important email ever probably for them, and they didn't even receive it. Now, who knows if that's true? I don't know. But
and to also like, if that is true, like to not follow up, like feels like a silly thing to be like, you don't have someone's phone number.
Right.
I did also see, do you think, and again, it's just kind of Twitter commentary, but do you think there's a chance that Andretti could buy Haas?
So that's the other point of it, which is people... After the whole conversation about we want a team that adds value, everyone was like, well, okay, Haas adds value. Come on. They've just been, I mean, they had a couple of good seasons, but for the last few years, they've been just kind of trudging in the back, and there's just nothing interesting about Haas, frankly. Honestly, like after Gunther left, it's like, there's just not a lot there. I don't think you look at Haas and you're like, American racing royalty.
No. The only reason I tie Haas to the quote unquote American team is Gene, obviously, but on a more practical level, it's because they're the team that Coda hypes up the most.
Yeah.
But that's really it.
Yeah.
Because, or like if there's a poster for Coda and only one team's on it, it's always Haas.
Yeah.
But I almost always forget Haas is quote unquote the American team.
I know. So maybe they would, but I just also think that that's kind of silly. I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I have all the answers or that I know how to fix this problem. There are a lot of other people out there who could do this, who could figure out kind of the better solution for all this, but it's just disappointing. And we really have to pour one out for Mr. Colton Herta.
Yeah.
Because boy, that guy got screwed over. Because if you weren't here in, I guess it was 2022, Colton was the favorite to replace Pierre Gasly at AlphaTauri, but he did not have enough points on his super license, could not get a super license. They then obviously pivoted, Nick DeVries. We know how that went down. And, God, that sucks.
It really does. I really thought he was coming in.
You thought he was coming in. It was right there for him. he's with Andretti. Looks like it might happen. He can get into Formula One, and not that I'm like the biggest Colton Herta fan. I'm not, honestly, but it sucks for him.
Just career wise, yeah.
Just career wise, and that there's not another place for an interesting person to come in,
or a female.
Yes, exactly. A woman, a young driver, maybe some other, because we don't really often see a lot of like. We don't really get to see like IndyCar drivers come into Formula One, or different racing series drivers get a chance in other, it feels like it's like you get your chance in Formula One, and if you fail in Formula One, you then go to IndyCar or some other series, but it's not the other way around. Like you very rarely see people that like succeed in IndyCar. And I think that's, again, I think that like we have this idea of like F1 is the pinnacle and the best drivers are in F1, but I don't know we know that that's not true, because there are people in F1 who probably shouldn't be in F1. Anyway,
I think it's really disappointing. I also think it's a cop out on the F1 management side of things, and I feel like at some point and it might not be soon, but there's going to come a time where they have to reflect on this, and we're like, and go, damn, we definitely should have just let them.
They basically said, we'll revisit this in 2028. Which it's like, all right,
that's
cool,
literally a lifetime from now.
And they really, the other part of it was that F1 does want Cadillac in. They also want GM in, I think, too. And it's like, again, it goes back to like
coming in with Cadillac.
They were coming in with Cadillac.
Yeah, so
but they wanted Cadillac. They didn't want Andretti.
Tough. Can't always get what we want.
And yeah, exactly. The Rolling Stones once told us that.
Yeah. I didn't realize that's who said it, but
you were thinking of the Glee version.
Honestly, I was.
So anyway, pour one out for Andretti. I hope that they're doing okay. And then I guess the question is, who is Andretti? Why are they? Who is this team? So the patriarch, the main man, Mario Andretti. I pulled up some facts. So he's one of the most successful racing drivers of all time. He's Italian American, and he is he's one of only 3 drivers to have won races in Formula One, IndyCar, the World Sports Car Championship, and NASCAR, which is kind of impressive. He won the F1 Championship in 1978, and he's the only driver to win the Indy 500, Daytona 500, and the Formula One World Championship. So, but icon, legend.
Not competitive enough.
No. And then his son, who I think I don't know if people know him more, but Michael was also a race car driver, and he's the one who now runs the IndyCar team. And we saw him in the McLaren hospitality.
Yeah.
He's friends with Zach Brown. Anyway, so that's who they are, and that's why they're well known, and all the things. It's just interesting. Okay, very quickly, because there's honestly not much to say about this, but the Haas, speaking of Haas, released their new livery. Mm-hmm. How did you feel?
And it was fine.
That's all you can say about every single one.
Because they always are. Like,
unless it's the Mercedes black.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because I've seen a couple people talk about how they don't like the black liveries as much.
Oh yeah.
On certain cars, sure, but like Mercedes, to me, it's just better. Which is fine if, we all have our own opinions. But yeah, I think I'll just be honest here.
Speak your truth.
For a lot of reasons, for like a lot of time, I think it's fine, is I can't tell the difference from last year's car because I'm not comparing and contrast. Like, it's not like I have a picture up of last year's livery and I'm looking at this year's livery and going, oh yes, this is where all the things are different. Like, I'm just like, great, cool. I mean, there hasn't been a livery launch that I'm like, what the hell is that? They've all been fine.
You mean like ever?
No, I mean this
like
so
right
far.
now.
Yeah,
We've only had
2. No,
right?
Yeah,
McLaren and Haas. That's it, right?
I think so.
Okay, I feel like I'm forgetting one, but by the time this comes out, Williams, they're gonna put out theirs today, and there's a few others this week. Today
isn't tomorrow for us.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Monday.
I
Okay.
don't know. I'm just very I'm on my anti-Haas stuff right now.
You're on your anti-Haas and your Carlos fatigue. It's fine.
I mean, we have to be able to speak our truth on this podcast. It's actually funny. I saw someone say, or I can't remember who it was, but they were like, it's funny when people expect podcasters to be like the news and to be unbiased and to just be,
especially
just
because
deliver the news.
I don't remember the last time I saw unbiased news.
Right, that's true. News is very biased.
So,
but yeah, it's like the point of this is that we have to say how we feel, and some people are not going to like how we feel, and that's okay, because there's people out there who aren't going to say things that I will not like. Yeah. And we just have to live with that in this world.
And if you want to talk about your opinion, start a podcast. No disrespect. It's just like someone believes the way you believe also. So
yeah, there's people out
let
there
your voice be heard
listening right now who absolutely hate Daniel Ricciardo, and like that's their truth.
And that's confusing for us. So that's not anything we'll ever discuss.
Maybe we should. If you have someone come on to...
Anyway, the Haas livery is fine. I liked it fine.
It was fine. They also came out and said that they definitely expect to be last in Bahrain. They expect to be the worst team. They've come out and said that.
Well, start with your expectations low.
They said they spent too much time they spent too much time last year on there. I forgot about this, but they brought a big upgrade to Austin, which I don't even... Was Haas good in Austin? I do not remember. I don't think they were. Or they were maybe got a point. I don't actually know. Clearly not good enough to for the upgrade to be worth it. And then, so they spent so much time focusing on that upgrade that then they were delayed focusing on this year's thing. So they expect to be last. So
the good news is Gene's very certain that they don't need more investment. So that's good. Because what should have happened is that there should have been a team working on the upgrade and a team working on this year's car.
Yeah. Or just doing better with the upgrade and then, all those things. So if you're doing predictions of if you're, I don't know, just trying to figure out who's going to finish last and for that first race of the year,
now you be careful with that, because you've also said that livery lunchtime is they come out with a bunch of nonsense trying to hustle everyone. Now, I don't think Haas is hustling anybody, and by hustling, I mean, maybe they won't be at the back. Maybe they'll be at 11, 12. I'm not saying they will be, guys.
Yeah.
But you just contradicted yourself, and if anyone's paying close attention,
we'll find out.
We will. But
Free practice one.
I'm imagining watching the fight for P17.
Love it. Can't wait.
Between Logan and Haas.
And no, it's going to be, it definitely could be Logan, though. Or he could be fighting.
Or Steak and Haas.
Steak, yeah.
Kick. Whatever.
I mean, let's hope. I feel like, because last year, do you remember we were all thrown for a loop when it was McLaren fighting for P17 at the beginning of the season.
That is so true.
So you never know what you could get. It could be Lance, it could be Fernando, it could be Yuki and Daniel. We just don't know.
I also just want to say I am so desperate for Formula One to come back.
I know, it's terrible.
I have never felt this way.
I know, I feel the same way.
I tried to watch the Clash yesterday, the NASCAR Clash. Uh-huh. And this is absolutely no disrespect to NASCAR. This is me not knowing what's going on or NASCAR, who's in the car.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to watch, because it was, I think with oval racing, there's different size oval tracks. Mm-hmm. Yep. And this one is particularly tight and it felt very slow. And I am sure it was really entertaining if you know what's going on, but I lasted about 12 minutes. Yeah. So I need
some education.
Well, you need Formula One back. And I need Formula One back. And IndyCar.
I would like IndyCar to come back.
Yeah, me too. And I'm going to watch is it Race to the Championship or Race to 100 Days to Indy?
Oh, the IndyCar
Race to the Championship is the NASCAR one. But I want to watch 100 Days to Indy again and really try and...
Yeah, get into it.
Yeah.
I very much would like it to come back very desperately. This is our first weekend in a while without football, and obviously next weekend. I think
that's what it is. I'm and there was a Kansas basketball game yesterday, but it was kind of meh and annoying, and I just...
Yeah, and obviously next weekend we have the final football game, and then
the big game,
and then there's not much going on for a few weeks, and it's just God, we
do get to celebrate my birthday at some point in there, right before DTS comes back.
Yes, exactly. So, which I'm sure everyone's really excited about.
I don't care if everyone's really excited about it. I'm really excited for it.
I know you are. No, I'm just saying as a collective, it's we all, I think, are desperate for just just to have that thing to look forward to, which sounds very sad if all you look forward to is...
Yeah, but it's dark and bleak.
Yeah.
Right now in January. Well, it's, I guess, February now.
And just the fun times.
Yeah.
It just brings fun times.
Well, because, I think about when the Lewis news dropped, how nice we were just chit-chatting away and everyone was freaking out. It's just the unified experience,
brings everyone together.
I miss it.
Yes. Yeah. I can't wait to come on here and just talk about that first race, like to recap the race. Yes.
And like, who's gonna win?
Bad, who's gonna be good?
Is Max
highs
gonna
and lows?
Because these liveries are fine and all, but like, show me how the car works, show me what it does.
Put it on the track. Put it on the track. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. The final like kind of piece of news was these rumors that started going around, I guess it was Friday, that Alex Albon had already signed a contract with Red Bull.
Oh, I didn't hear the rumors that he's already signed it. I just heard that it's in talk.
So this is how it all went down. So F1 journalist Peter Windsor. Now, I don't know how reliable he is. I haven't done like my deep dive as to whether or not he's deserving of being in our list of people. We should have like a board that's like truth tellers.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Like kind of like
we should
tiers.
just pin a post or something of like, these are the truth tellers.
Yeah, these are the ones you should watch out for.
These are the ones we're unsure of.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
they can get moved over.
People that are like sometimes right, sometimes very wrong. Like you just don't really know what you're going to get with them. Like a Dumois type.
Totally.
Like sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. I don't know about this Peter fellow, but he was speaking on a podcast and he said, as I understand it, Albon has been offered a 3-year contract to start in 2025. So I think you're going to see him alongside Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. I can't imagine he's going to say no to that. From what I understand, it's 90% correct. So people were like, oh my God. And it was funny because on Twitter, this was very interesting. I was like witnessing this. You had Alex Albon fans who were like so upset about this because they were like, we do not want Alex going back to this team. Like we want him to stay, or we just can't have this like toxic situation again. Like, please no, please no. And then you had Daniel fans who were like devastated.
Totally.
And it was just funny, like how different people react to these types of things. And then you had a bunch of Alex fans being like, the way that I am praying on my hands and knees for Daniel to win the first race of the season so that like,
oh sure,
he knocks Alex out of the thing. I was like, this is funny. But then it came out on Saturday that report isn't true. Again, another F1 journalist, Thomas Mayer, again, not sure how trustworthy he is, but
I'm not familiar with this word.
He said Red Bull aren't currently making a play for Alex Albon, contrary to rumors swirling at the moment. Interestingly, a source has suggested the news could be a play from Albon's camp to gain Mercedes' attention. Which that sounds more likely to me.
Yeah, or both are true. Like I could see in a way, like I could see, I don't know if it would have been 3 years, but I could see them having put in an offer to Alex. I mean, for the same reason that we talked about with Nate. I feel like we've been referencing that interview a lot, but a lot of good stuff came out of that interview. If you haven't listened, definitely check it out.
It's gonna be like 6 months down the road.
Yeah,
like, remember that?
Yeah, remember that time we talked to Nate? He's really on his shit. But we did talk about the fact that I think Red Bull does have some remorse about how that situation was handled, and that if they brought him on again, it would be handled differently. Who knows? But just that we weren't sure, like, if Alex would really want, because even if things have changed and things are better, does he want to actually go back into that place? Like, whatever, is there a PTSD involved in doing something like that? So I could see there have being an offer of a probably smaller amount of time, and that it got raised up in order to make him competitive for potentially going with Mercedes. Because still, literally anything can happen, as we have seen in the last, I don't know, 4 days, 5 days, however many days it's been. But the more likely change is Alex going to Merc.
Right. There's a number of things that were sort of confusing about it. One being, exactly. The time, the amount of time was curious, because if you're Red Bull, if you're Red Bull in general, why would you rush this kind of decision? Because you should wait to see how the season plays out, because you have a number of people who are in contention or that you could consider for that spot, and why not wait to see how that unfolds? It seems short-sighted to me to be like, all right, you're gonna get, come on in, because how does Checo perform? How does Daniel perform? How does Fernando or anyone else that you might be considering perform? I don't really even know who's like on their list of like potential. I mean, they kind of like screwed themselves over in some ways, because they've sort of burned like there's people who are like kind of like gun shy, obviously, to go to that team, and Max is such a like unique perspective. It's weird that there's a team that is so competitive, has the best car, and yet there are people who are like, I don't know that I want to go there.
Yeah,
it's a weird thing.
Yeah, because to me the options seem, if they don't re-sign Checo, it's Daniel or it's Alex. Yeah, and I also can't get the whole like the Liam situation. Like there seems to be an understanding that he has a seat in 25, 26?
Yeah, 25.
So, if Yuki doesn't go somewhere, like if that doesn't move and they, it does. I think it depends on how Alex and Daniel are driving this year. And I could see a world in which Daniel does move, but I can also see a world in which he's the best marketing machine and does really well at,
or he does fine.
I literally forgot their name.
He does good enough. Like he's good enough to keep that seat, but maybe not like enough
not the number 2 they want for Max.
Wow, yeah. It's interesting too, because like from Red Bull's perspective, I just keep thinking, I'm like, if you're Alex, well, looking at Alex Albon, and I know I've said this before, like I think he's a wonderful driver. I think he's great, but I do think in the back of your head you have to think about the fact that his 2 teammates have been Latifi and Logan Sargent. Like that does have to be like,
sure, but
I'm not saying he hasn't been good, but I'm just saying, are we overestimating his potential? That's a question one would have to ask. On the other hand, you would also have to think to yourself, okay, he struggled when he was with us. Who didn't struggle when he was with us? And I think that has to kind of play a part. Also, Daniel's at the end of his lifespan of Formula One. Like he's not waiting around to maybe move here or to drive for X, he's at the end, and like I think he's gonna be happy being on that team and being in that environment, and it's not gonna affect him in the way that I think it would affect Alex, who I think has many, many more years left in him, and like it's a bigger risk for him to make that kind of a jump.
Yeah, and I think too there's something to be said for Daniel making the move to Red Bull to finish out the rest of his career, so that V-Carb team is what it has been for a long time, which sort of becomes their like feeder team, and like really develop people in that car and then move them up to Red Bull when it makes sense. I don't know. It'll just be so interesting.
Who do you want? Like if you could pick who's in that seat, who would you want?
I want Daniel in that seat. Okay. Because I also, I think Daniel is a great driver. I'm not sure there's a world in which Daniel becomes a championship driver.
But can you imagine if there was like some weird thing that happened where like Daniel goes to Red Bull and like Max all of a sudden has just like absolutely terrible luck and like his car like and then there's a world in which Daniel ends up winning the championship.
But karma, man.
Drive to Survive would literally like
implode. I think they'd have to end.
that
because it would never get better than that.
Perfect ending to the story. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, but I think would be the next best option of anyone who's actually on the grid to be the second driver at Red Bull.
Yeah,
and then Alex is not in the Red Bull family.
Yeah, totally better for everyone involved.
Yeah.
It's also interesting, Helmut Marko made it clear apparently that Daniel Ricciardo has a quote long-term contract, so is therefore unavailable for a move to Mercedes. Now, I don't know what that means. Long-term contract.
Daniel's not going to Mercedes.
No, he's not.
He tried it several times and it didn't work, and he's back in the Red Bull family and his smile is back and he doesn't have that many years left. His words, not mine, not from dying, just, and
well, it's Formula One death.
The retirement.
The retirement.
Can we not call it
Yeah, it's not a death. It's not a death.
And so, like, he's good. Like, Toto might wear his merch, but, like, that's all. And it's totally fine. Christian Horner, I think he realized the grass isn't always greener. And I think he's happy being back in the Red Bull family. Yeah. And honestly, if he did make a change again, I would be shocked.
I'd be shocked.
Like, that, to me, would feel crazier than what happened with Lewis. In a lot of ways.
That would be
because it's
crazy.
Like, dude, you tried this already.
Yeah,
what do you even mean?
So much I can.
And the only way he gets around that is by winning the championship that year.
Yeah.
Which
full respect, but
it's hard to Yeah.
It's hard to imagine.
I don't have a crystal ball or anything, but feels unlikely.
Yeah, but the long-term contract thing really like threw people off because his contract's supposedly ending this year with VCarb. But I'm wondering if he signed like a longer deal with like Red Bull proper, and then it's like, you know, he could kind of go wherever he wants. I don't know. We'll wait and see what happens. Though I do think those are the two guys. I think Carlos, people have thrown around Carlos. I think it's been reported again. Nate mentioned it too, that like they kind of burned that bridge, the Red Bull Carlos bridge. And I think, and people have said like, this is why, you know, Daniel, he may have left Red Bull in a difficult situation, but he's always left situations positively. Yeah. And he's like he's always been in a position where people want to have him back. Yeah. And like, they are like, oh yeah, well, even though you did this to us, like we still love you and we still are like,
we can understand. We saw your side and
Whereas I feel like Carlos maybe, I don't think that was the case when he chose to leave the Red Bull family. And so I think there's still a little bit of
animosity,
bad blood.
And also, again, I mean, we've talked about this, but with the Audi thing, it's like he would have to sign a very short contract with Red Bull, and Red Bull doesn't seem to like those.
Yeah, I think it's not gonna happen. But crazier things have happened in this sport in the last week, so anything is genuinely possible.
I'm just curious to know, like, will we be waiting all season for answers to a lot of these questions, or will some of them?
I think there's going to probably be like some. I bet there's always that like one or two that like it's up until the very end, and you're like, what's going to happen? I could see that for a couple of them, but I think a lot of them will be resolved. I think, like for example, Red Bull. I think they're going to make up their mind by like the summer break.
Yeah. Still a long time.
That's my and. Like I said, I still kind of believe this to be true. Would not shock me if Checo signs a deal first. Checo finds another team and signs a deal before Red Bull reveal he does not have the seat anymore. Because I could see him wanting to be proactive about, if he's feeling like I'm not going to get re-signed, being proactive about finding a seat rather than like in September, like, oh shit, I need to find a seat, and there's only so many available to him, you know. So
curious.
Keep your eyes and ears peeled, ears to the ground. All right, I'm gonna go through some new questions you guys have sent in and just see if there's anything we haven't talked about. Oh, this is funny. Someone said, random question, but which F1 driver do you think you look most like? Well, we've gotten some comments from people that say that you look like Max Verstappen.
I was gonna say that maybe that's true, which is weird.
People have said that. They're like, she looks like a female version of Max Verstappen.
I hope that's a compliment.
I mean, I mean, you like Max, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I like Max, but a lot of people don't like Max.
I don't think people dislike Max because of the way that he looks.
Okay, well, I would also say that you look most like Charles.
Wow. Thanks, Hannah.
You're welcome.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said. For a second, I thought you were going to say George.
No, I don't think so.
We don't have the same eyes.
No.
Wow.
But, you know, dark hair.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a cousin or something.
Yeah,
you know, like
absolutely.
Relative.
Yeah. Is it bad that I'm attracted to someone that I look kind of like?
That's like, is that normal? I think that's a thing.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
I think that's very much. I think people like the whole dating or siblings thing. I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
because people tend to like people that they look like.
Fascinating.
Yeah. That was a good question. Okay. Questions about Carlos signing with Mercedes. We'll see.
Yeah, no one knows.
New fan here. Could you do an episode talking about things you need to know about each driver?
Wow.
Not so much maybe need to know about each driver, but little spoiler alert. Next week. So I'm going out of town next weekend, or this upcoming weekend, I suppose. And so we have pre-recorded some episodes for next Monday and Wednesday. You're going to get 2 episodes.
It's a two-parter.
Should we just reveal what it is? We're going through each driver and revealing why you should be a fan of every single driver on the grid. Very fun episode.
Very fun. Some
episodes
for me, some were trickier than others.
Yeah, but it was a great exercise in focusing on the positives of each driver, and that was fun. We did record this like a month ago, so if things maybe seem weird or we reference Alpha Tauri or something and not VCarb, that is why, and that's also why we're going to save our conversation for all of the other livery car launches and stuff until I guess the week after. I think it would be the 19th episode. We'll do like a full deep dive into all the new cars and whatnot. So yeah, just a little heads up, but glad that you asked that question, because we'll get into all the things. Okay, with all the contract renewals this year, what current driver might not get a seat for 2025? Who do we think is out?
Okay, well, there's been concern or questions about Logan.
Yeah.
I feel unknown about Checo. Like, if he doesn't get re-signed at Red Bull, I'm just not sure where. It just depends. Again, it's all the kind of moving around. I worry about the Haas drivers. I don't know what their contracts look like. I don't know when those are up.
They're both up.
Okay. So that concerns me. And
also steak.
Yeah. I'm also just always curious when Lance is going to decide he doesn't want to be an F1 driver anymore. Because I think that's the hardest one, is that basically that seat's locked in until he decides I'm good.
Yeah.
And for all like what we talked about last year with like the rehab and like all the effort that he put into like get healthier again. I'm sorry. His physical therapy and stuff for his injury. I don't know. Towards the end of the season, he seemed kind of out of it. But again, and I said this when we were talking about it that last season, is we're seeing such small clips, which we're really only giving a glimpse of like his personality in a like 4-second window. So it's really hard to say like, oh, he looks unhappy. Like he just
might be upset
or reading something, or just like not paying attention, just focused on something. So anyway, that's always curious to me. But
so let's just pick one driver that you're like, this person's not going to be there next year.
I don't want to say it out loud.
Okay. I'll say it.
Okay.
I don't think Kevin Magnussen will be on the grid. That's my prediction.
Me neither. I really want Kevin Magnussen to go to IndyCar.
Oh, he'd be great at IndyCar.
Yeah.
And see, that's the other thing. It's like, there's this other life that these drivers can have. Also, Roman Grosjean acting like Toto Wolff was going to sign him. Give me a break. Also, where's Nico Rosberg? Why has Nico Rosberg not been running his mouth about Lewis to Ferrari? This seems like his perfect time for him to be on the podcast, on the media circuit, talking about this whole thing.
How embarrassing for him.
This is his favorite hobby.
I know, but like
talking about Lewis. Lights turned rainbow. It's fine.
Our backlight just went rainbow. It's never happened before.
Gay pride.
Woo. Yeah, good question. I think it's fine because that's so humiliating for him, and I bet no one picked that up. I could see him sending like a, "Hey, I'd love to be on your show to talk about this," and then being like, "No,
I think people would."
Embarrassing.
I think he's always on Sky Sports anyway. I feel like they would love to have the Nico Rosberg perspective. I could be wrong, but yeah. And then
to be honest, I didn't notice that he was missing from the conversation. So
yeah, but Roman being like, "Toto, call me." I'm just like, come on, bro.
With all due respect, you crash all of the time.
You're not even like, you're barely good enough to be an IndyCar. Barely. Like he didn't get re-signed with Andretti, and then he had to get, I can't remember who he got re-signed by, but like barely at like the last second.
It's that team from Brazil, I want to say. Oh God, they're black and green. I think.
I don't know, but it's
anyway.
Okay.
It doesn't matter
if you're listening. Anyway,
they're on the show. I think they're on Race to Indy.
So it's not going to be you. And also, Danny Kvyat also was posting Instagram stories about how he was like going to like, Red Bull, call me, or I'm just like,
no.
Arrivederci.
That's like Nick DeVries being like, hey, Christian, give me a call. Like
Toto. He'd honestly go for the.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Stop
Which
trying
is too
to make
bad.
fetch happen.
I still feel so bad that that's all happened.
I know. And we're going to get to relive all of that in Drive to Survive.
Oh my God.
Oh, actually, that was one of the questions people said, what do you think they'll focus on Drive to Survive? Like, what do you think will be the storylines they focus on?
It involves Daniel, so that will be a big storyline.
The whole storyline about, I feel like now we know the formula of Drive to Survive. We
no
know
pun intended.
What there's going to be like an episode about Nick struggling and Yuki doing well. And it's going to be this whole like, Yuki's doing great and then Nick's doing poorly, and they're gonna be conversations about like, why is Nick doing so poorly, and like, that whole thing. And then it's gonna end the episode's going to end, and like it's gonna like be either Daniel like sitting in the chair,
Yeah,
or
I
like
can hear the tweets.
There's like something that's gonna be like, I'm back, or something, or like you thought I was, like he's gonna have some little quip.
I could see him doing the I never left thing again.
Yeah, I never left. And then there's gonna be an episode about Daniel replacing Nick, and then there's gonna be some sort of fake thing about him like doing, like I could see them focusing on a race where he does very well, of like, oh, he's back. They're gonna focus on they're gonna probably cover the broken hand, that thing. But that's gonna be like a two-parter, like a 2-episode situation, I envision. I think there's also going to be a Checo episode about Checo.
Maybe he'll do another photo shoot.
One can only hope. God, that was hilarious. Checo's struggling, and maybe again, like Red Bull being like, what's going to happen with Checo? I can see that.
The frustrations at Ferrari.
Yes, because they always have to do a Ferrari episode.
Yeah,
probably a McLaren. Like they were not good, and then they were good. And Drive to Survive also loves like a compare contrast, like a
totally.
You know, the fight for P5. We're looking at Alpine. We're looking at McLaren, and we're going to go back and forth between the two storylines. You know,
and the Williams for like Logan.
I was going to say like and then like Alex Albon's great season, and I was going to say too, I could see them doing an Alpine like, oh, they used to hate each other, and like now what's going on, you know, that whole thing, like feud alert. alert. What else? Maybe some Aston Martin stuff, like Fernando, and I don't know. I mean, they had that good like first half of the season. I really think they're going to ignore Stake, Alfa Romeo. Like I don't think there's much to say about them this season. Not. Haas, I mean, you kind of can't ignore Haas because of Gunther, but Gunther, like what did they do? Who knows? But it's going to be, as it always is, it's going to be a heavy Daniel season. Yeah. And everyone's just going to have to get on board. Okay. Which race are you most looking forward to this year?
The first one. Not really.
The one that breaks the drought.
Yeah.
I think,
I mean, I am excited for, but also Miami, because we're going.
Yeah.
And Silverstone, because maybe we're going.
Yep.
And
but out of the ones that we're not going to, just purely for the race itself, I'm excited to watch Vegas again.
Yeah, I was gonna say Vegas. I always like Spa.
I'm excited. You know what I'm excited for? Australia.
Oh yeah,
let's go.
LFG.
Australia is going to be good, and that's always kind of a fun race anyway. And I'm looking forward to that
was the one last year that had all the
red flags. Yeah, that was literally insanity. I always like, I mean, Monaco's always kind of fun, though, you know, race itself is not great, but like it's always a experience, I suppose. I like Monza sometimes. And I'm trying to think of, and I always like Singapore.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think if there's a race I'm like, yuck. Gross.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No.
Not yet. Okay, I think that's kind of all of most of the other ones we've gone over.
Has there been more chatter on the Chicago race, or was it just that they trademarked the name?
Not that I've seen, just trademark.
So curious.
Yeah, I
How long is the race going to be in Miami?
10. I mean, whenever they sign the contract,
10 years.
It was 10 years. Yeah, I'm okay without it, but like I understand other people might enjoy it, but it's
part of what I was wondering is if it's not coming until, like, if maybe they're finishing it, like they, instead of adding a fourth, they're taking one of them away. Yeah. And you can't take out Coda. I mean,
no, better not.
It's a track that's built permanently.
Just stop taking away the good tracks. Like if it's like, oh, we're going to replace Spa, but we're going to give you Chicago. It's like, no, thank you.
Our group is full.
Our group is full. Literally. Please don't. I did see, though, we didn't talk about this, but Suzuka re-signed for, I think, till 29.
Something like that.
So that's good. That is good for the Japanese fans, and like to keep a historic track.
Oh, and China. I haven't seen that race.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited for
China.
that. Yeah.
And you know what else I'm excited for? Just because it's where Daniel does well, typically. Knock on wood.
That's not wood.
Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Basically any race where the V carb is good, I'll be pumped. I literally don't care. Like, it could be.
I'm really excited to see what the car's capable of because they talked a big game about it. And I hope they back it up.
Yeah, back it up. Exactly. Show us what you got. Anything else to go over before we wrap it up?
No.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening. If you haven't given us a rating on Spotify, would you just do that right now? Just go to your Spotify app, 5 stars. Please. Write us a review on Apple Podcasts. That would be really nice.
Give us a subscribe. Ring the bell on our YouTube channel.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Even if you don't watch us on YouTube, it's super helpful.
We're going to be doing, when we do race recaps going forward, we are going to be doing some stuff that will be exclusively YouTube content for race recaps. So if you are someone who listens to us only on Spotify or Apple, just know that we're going to do some YouTube only stuff as well. But yeah, that would be very helpful. And again, reminder that next week's episodes will be they've been recorded, but they're fun. You'll enjoy them. Also, we are not sponsored by Poppy, but we would like to be sponsored by Poppy.
So true.
So if Poppy wants to get on board and reach out to us and send us a case or something, we could just take gifts. I'll take gifts.
Yeah.
Because I only drink Poppy now, so that would be helpful. All right, guys.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next week.
Well, you'll see us next week.
From the future. The past or whatever.
Yeah.
Enchante.